Hey guys, StarLight TCG here. I'm StarLight Matt and I'm with.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Starlight Frank.
And this is going to be our second episode of the Counter series. We're going to be countering Command Sabine Wren. So, this is probably going to be the deck you see most popularized at your locals, being that it's the cheapest top tier deck in the game.
All right, so we're gonna be going over the leaders and the base.
Alright, going into the leader and base, we have, of course, the most broken base in the game, Energy Conversion Lab. Epic action, play a unit that costs 6 or less from your hand, give it ambush for this phase. Such an incredibly strong card, and it's a tempo swinger. And then going into Sabine Wren, we have action, deal 1 damage to each base. And so that's such a powerful, just ping 1 to both bases and advance the game state. And then epic action, if you control 4 or more resources, deploy this leader, which means Sabine comes out the fastest out of any leader currently in the game. Sabine Wren is a 2/5. On attack, deal 1 damage to each enemy base, so Sabine can essentially just tag the base for 3 damage and 1 attack, which is really powerful as well, coming out turn 4.
So basically, all I gotta say for Sabine, yeah, she comes out super early. And then usually around when she comes out is when they'll use Energy Conversion Lab. You'll see a combo we'll talk about later in the video, but if you see Sabine Wren not coming out, we'll show you later why she doesn't come out on the resources she's supposed to come out sometimes.
Alright, going into our ground units for aggression, we of course have the best 2-drop in the entire game, Sabine Wren. 2/3. While there are at least 3 aspects among other friendly units, this unit can't be attacked unless you gain Sentinel. On attack, you may deal 1 damage to the defender or to a base. So Sabine Wren is essentially a 3/3 turn 1 drop, which is just super powerful. And then later in the game, if you have 3 aspects among your other cards, she essentially can't be attacked. Going into our turn 2 plays, we have Fighters for Freedom. It's a 3/4 with Saboteur, so it ignores Sentinel and defeats Shield. And when you play another aggression card, you may deal 1 damage to a base. So this will just let you stack up a lot of early damage by playing a multitude of aggression cards. Then, of course, we have one of the fan favorites in the deck, turn 3 and up, K2SO, 4/4 with Overwhelm. So if it attacks a unit, it'll do excess damage to the base. And then when defeated, for each opponent, choose one, either deal 3 damage to that player's base, or that player discards a card from their hand. So if K2 is partnered up with some of these other cards you'll see later in this video, it can essentially do just a multitude of damage in one turn. And then of course we have turn 5 or higher, Gorilla Attack Pod, which is essentially the Fet's Fire Spray of the Sabine deck. It's a 4/6 with Grit, and when played, if a base has 15 or more damage on it, ready this unit. And so I'm going to let StarLight Frank kind of get into the deep depth of these cards.
Yeah, so Sabine is your classic turn 1 play. Literally play her turn 1, turn 2. We'll see the next card on the next slide, what you pair this up with on your turn 2. But, yep, so she's really good. Best 2-drop in the game, honestly. Fighters for Freedom. This is a good card just to deal extra damage. You play this either turn 2 or higher. And then the next turn you could play another red card and then just keep dealing damage if she stays on the board. So K2 is really good. K2 is actually one of the cards that a lot of people will use to go for game. They'll use Energy Conversion Lab for K2, bring him out. Since he has Overwhelm, whatever he's defeating will deal excess damage to the base. And if the unit he's defeating has 4 attack, it will defeat K2, and normally what they'll do is they'll deal the 3 damage on top. So normally it'll be like a 4/2 or 4/3 essentially, or maybe some unit's been damaged already. They'll energy ambush K2SO, probably dealing 2 to 3 to the base from Overwhelm, and then another 3 on top of that. So you gotta watch out for that strategy. And then Gorilla Attack Pod is another one that they'll use for Energy Conversion Lab. Since the effect or the ambush goes first, it'll deal the damage or defeat whatever he's defeating, and if a base has 15 or more, he'll actually ready up again. So if you see someone pulling that strategy, yeah, it's legal. Really good because it has grit for each damage, so if you attack something into it and it has 4 HP or something, or has 4 attack on it, Gorilla Attack Pod's now an 8-2, so it will definitely change the flow of the game, having him be an 8-2 ready to attack your base, so be wary of that.
Going into our ground units for command, we have the turn 1 drop Battlefield Marine, just a 3-3, very good card, of course with Rebel Allegiance as well. Then we have Echo Base Defender, 3 cost, 4-3 with Sentinel, just being able to kind of stall some of the other damage that another aggression deck might do to you, or anything, just force them to address the Echo Base Defender. Turn 4 or higher, we of course have Steadfast Battalion, one of the most broken cards in the game, 5-5 with Overwhelm, and then on attack, if you control a leader unit, give a friendly unit +2/+2 for this phase. And then of course, turn 2 or more, what you're going to see standard in a lot of these Sabine decks is of course Fleet Lieutenant, 3-3, but when played you may attack with a unit. If it's a rebel unit, it gets +2 for this attack.
Yeah, Fleet Lieutenant, best combo in the game. No, I'm just kidding. A lot of people love this combo. You're just going to see the turn 1 Sabine or Battlefield, turn 2 or Green Squadron A-Wing, which will be in the next slide. Turn 2, Fleet Lieutenant, and then claim initiative after that. So be wary. That's pretty much your turn 1 and turn 2 combos you'll see. And then for Steadfast Battalion, all I'll say for this is if you see that your opponent does not play Sabine on 4 resources, just know Steadfast Battalion's coming out the next turn. They'll play Sabine on 5 resources, Energy Conversion Lab, Steadfast Battalion. If you control a leader unit, it gets +2 for the attack. So Overwhelm, it'll probably give it to Steadfast or maybe the leader. Just doing 7/7 on top of a unit and then dealing the excess Overwhelm to the base. So be careful of that. If you see that the game is being played differently, then you'll know why it's Steadfast Battalion coming out. And then you have Echo Base Defender. That's just your Sentinel stall that every deck needs. Every deck pretty much needs some kind of Sentinel for the aggro deck. So nothing there. And then Battlefield Marine. That's another turn 1 play with Sabine Wren.
We'll go into the space units for Aggression Rebel. We have turn 1 Alliance X-Wing, just a 2-3. Kind of not too much to be worried about with that card. But then going into the scarier cards, we're of course going to have their favorite turn 1 play, Green Squadron A-Wing, a 1-3 with Raid 2, so when it's attacking it's a 3-3, which is just so powerful for a turn 1 card, especially partnered up with the Fleet Lieutenant, which can do 5 damage. And then going into turn 2 or higher, we of course have Wing Leader, 2-1, but it's able to give 2 experience tokens to another friendly rebel unit when played, so just beefing up another card. If you're beefing up your Green Squadron A-Wing even further, then that's just even stronger of a card. And then of course we have our turn 2 or higher card, Red 3, 2-3, Raid 1, this unit gets +1 when attacking of course, and then each other friendly rebel unit also gains Raid 1.
What Sabine has probably better than most other decks is the space. So Sabine's pretty good that it can either go ground or space. It can stack up super wide on both areas. So be wary of that. If you're a deck that lacks space units, you're going to probably want to see the sideboard cards that we have for you in the space. But it's Green Squadron A-Wing. That's probably the turn 1 play that I play Sabine, so that's probably the card I want to see in my starting hand. If I don't see it, I literally just put my hand back. So Wing Leader, really good card. It beefs up something. I don't like it as much as the Fleet Lieutenant because, yeah, even though it's giving the experience tokens to another unit, a lot of the times they'll try to stop your unit before attacking with the 5 damage. Most of the time the 5 damage. So, but yeah, Wing Leader is still really good. You can give it to leaders or other units in the deck that we saw previously. And then Red 3 is good because if you have a super wide board and you smack Red 3 down, it turns everything from 3 damage to 4 damage, which is extra damage on top of the attacks they're dealing with you already. So yeah, the space is really good for Sabine, so be mindful that she can go into the space and just go super wide in the space. So
alright, going into the events that you're going to see in a Command Sabine deck. We of course are going to have Heroic Sacrifice, 1 cost, draw a card, then attack with a unit. For this attack it gets +2 and gains when this unit deals combat damage defeated, so it dies after the attack is triggered. Then of course we have played during any turn card, but most of them playing during turn 3 or higher, Rebel Assault. Attack with a rebel unit, it gets +1 for this attack. Then attack with another rebel unit, it gets +1 for this attack. So it's able to present you 2 attacks simultaneously, and in addition, you know, kind of push it back to your opponent, but you can potentially take the initiative after playing this card. It's pretty much a Leia. And then you have For a Cause I Believe In, one of the most broken cards in the game, especially in this deck. As you can see, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. For each Rebel card revealed this way, deal 1 damage to an enemy base. You may discard any of the revealed cards and put the rest back on top of your deck in any order. So essentially, Sabine wants this to be a 4 damage to you when they have nothing on board, which is so powerful. Then we have U-Wing Reinforcement. It's going to be a turn 6 or higher card when you have 7 resources. Search the top 10 cards of your deck for up to 3 units with a combined cost of 7 or less, and play each of them for free. So this card is so incredibly powerful, being able to spam multiple units on the board at the same time, which you'll see with some other cards down the line we'll explain here. And it's something that it's just incredibly powerful, being able to push so many units on board.
Heroic Sacrifice, that's just a card to go for game. A lot of times you'll see your opponent play Heroic Sacrifice with K2. K2 will do 6 damage, overwhelm to the base, and then it'll be defeated right after another 3 damage. So be careful with the Heroic Sacrifice. It also can be used to push for game. You have Rebel Assault. Rebel Assault attack with the Rebel unit, so really good. That's pretty much, they'll save this for turn 3. They'll save it in their hand. They do the Fleet Lieutenant combo. This is literally next. They'll attack with Fleet and Battlefield Marine or Sabine. That's 8 damage to your base on turn 3. So that's very powerful. And then For a Cause, the game ender. If you're at 4 health and they play For a Cause, you lost. Like, there's nothing else to put it. You pretty much lose. Unless they get lucky with the Steadfast Battalion being in your deck, or being in the deck and revealing Steadfast Battalion, you'll be saved. But then they'll just use Sabine effect to ping for the last damage. So you're most likely pretty much the game is over when this card's played. U-Wing, this is good. Normally they'll play Echo Base Defender that you saw previously. They'll play that card or play Bright Hope that you'll see in the sideboard. They'll play that or play that just for Sentinels to be on the board so they can survive longer. They'll play those cards or play pretty much just cards to deal damage to the base. They can go super wide with this card, so be mindful that these will be played.
Alright, the strength and weaknesses of this deck. The strengths are fast damage to a base. You can have a wide board of units, so just a super amount of units on the board, and then cards that skip action turns. The weaknesses are there's a lack of removal. It's outmatched in mid to late game, so control and mid-range decks, if they get to the turns they want to get to, they're going to be given an advantage there. And it's obviously weak against upgrades because of the lack of removal.
Remember, they're going to go for your base, so you have to try and stop the base from getting hit. So you got to do whatever you can to stop that. The wide board that we talked about, U-Wing, on top of just playing cards. Then the cards that skip action turns, Fleet Lieutenant, Rebel Assault, those all skip action turns, which is pretty prevalent because they can keep initiative that way. So taking the initiative from Sabine is also really good. And obviously, because there's literally no removal cards, a lot of Sabine decks don't run removal at all. So you can take advantage with that. Take advantage by upgrading your units, giving them boosts. They pretty much can just stay on board. Anything you upgrade, you just know it'll probably stay on the board. And they're just going to try and go for the base and just ignore the units. So you can use that to your advantage. Obviously, if it goes to the mid game or late game, and you don't have so much damage on your base already, you probably will come out victorious. You did what you had to do to stop having so much damage on the base. And then obviously the upgrades, yeah, lack of removal, so upgrades are pretty good sideboard cards that you would want to use against Sabine. Mid-range strategy, what I'll see, making sure you have Overwhelming Barrage in your hand. That card's really good. Making sure you can stop the Fleet Lieutenant combo, doing everything you can to stop that. Obviously, if you're running mid-range, you're probably running Boba Fett or Han, so you have cards that can rest things. So making sure you rest like Green Squadron, anyone or Sabine, so that the next turn 2 plays won't have any effect. And then also, I have the little initiative token there, so claiming initiative is super important because it gives you a chance to stop whatever they're going to do. Gives you a chance to stop, maybe defeat a unit to stop Rebel Assault from being played, or try to stop K2 from doing so much damage. So just making sure you also have initiative. Try to take initiative as you can, and then defeating the early game units.
Right, and so I would say, obviously you don't have just No Good to Me Dead. There's, of course, Asteroid Sanctuary and other cards. And so early game against Sabine with a mid-range deck, you're really trying to take control of that board and clear out some of the units. So say you drop like a Viper Probe Droid, they drop Sabine Wren, you claim, tap the Sabine Wren, take her out. Stop worrying about the base. When you get to that mid to end game, you're going to be favored. So just try to get to that point.
So the control strategies. So obviously super important because your control, you have a lot of removal cards, but sometimes it can get pretty hard if they're playing a lot of units. So making sure doing strategies like energy conversion lab with a unit. Obviously you want to save energy conversion lab, but honestly playing energy conversion lab first, give it to like Consortium Star Viper. That's the card we have on the board. Giving it to a unit like that, restoring to defeating Green Squadron A-Wing is pretty powerful. You're healing for it as well, so making sure you stop those turn plays, and then of course stopping K2 and U-Wing reinforcement from being used to its advantage. You want to kind of just take out these units. Play Regional Governor and say Fleet Lieutenant, and if they don't play anything the next turn, then you got them. You stopped them from playing the combo. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, or even Regional Governor, if you have control over the board, but you're still low on health, just call for a cause I believe in, and never have to worry about that card ending you. That's something you really have to worry about in Sabine decks, especially if they play multiple on you, because just a single for a cause I believe in is 4 damage, let alone if they get another one, it can be potentially 8. And for a cause also stacks their deck. So that's something important to note. So Regional Governor can be very good in that instance as well. With K2, something to think about is if they're going to get a turn to potentially Heroic Sacrifice, push it for game on you with that 9 damage. Make sure you can either win the game that turn or take K2 out so that combo is no longer prevalent. Even if it's not the best thing for you, at least it guarantees only 3 damage to the base versus potentially a 9. Going into the sideboard villainy cards, we of course have Force Lightning. Choose a unit, it loses all abilities for this phase, so it can really hurt some of the combos Sabine wants to trigger off. Especially in the early game, you hit Green Squadron A-Wing, it no longer has raid. So you're able to partner this up with a lot of other cards, and it's just a really good card to have in general, especially against Sabine, because a lot of these combo pieces, like we've talked about, K2, they're able to use their abilities to do more damage to you. So taking away those abilities is really strong. Then we have the Imperial Interceptor. When played, you may deal 3 damage to a space unit. It's able to take out your Green Squadron A-Wing. And then Del Meeko's here. Each event an opponent plays costs 1 more, so it's able to slow down some of those events that a Sabine deck might play.
Yeah, Force Lightning's good. They all have raid, so just stopping the raid means they're just whatever. Also stopping Red 3. Playing it on there and stopping the raid to give every unit is also super strong too. And then Imperial Interceptor is just a card really focused on space, right? Because Sabine can go super wide in the space. Interceptor really helps with that. It really immediately takes out Green Squadron A-Wing, Red 3, anything like that that's in your way. And then Del Meeko is a card. 1, it has Restore, which is pretty good. 2, it turns all the events that the deck has 1 cost more, right? So you slap this on turn 5 or 6. U-Wing Reinforcement now costs 8, and it cannot be played that turn. So you just literally stop that play and probably help you win the game that way. Also, it also stops Rebel Assault, because now Rebel Assault instead of 1 is 2. So that's pretty huge, especially if they have, let's say, 4 resources. You play this, now they have to pay, okay, do I want to pay 2, or do I want to pay 3 for Fleet Lieutenant, or for Wing Leader, for my leader, or stuff like that. So it just really helps slowing the game down.
Going into our sideboard for heroism, you're going to see this card a lot in this series. Spark of Rebellion, such a huge card, 2 cost of course. Look at an opponent's hand and discard a card from it, so incredibly strong. You're able to stop their early game plays or their late game plays with this card. And then going into space, we have Bright Hope. It's a 2/6 Sentinel. When played, you may return a friendly non-leader ground unit to its owner's hand. If you do, draw a card. You don't really care about that part of the effect. You care that it's a Sentinel. It's going to be stopping this barrage of damage from all their space units, and it needs to be at least hit for 6 to die back.
Yeah, Spark Rebellion I think is turning into a main deck card. It's that good to where it just might be a main deck card. But yeah, if you're not running this card, you have no space. Yeah, Spark Rebellion's always good to have 3 of. It stops fleet. You pretty much, let me just play this because I can't stop their space unit. You have nothing in space. Let me play Spark Rebellion. Oh, Fleet Lieutenant in your hand? Let me take that out. Stops their entire turn 2 play, which is really good. And of course, you play this later. You bring reinforcements in the hand. They're about to play it. Take it out of their hand. And then Bright Hope, again, the space. A lot of decks have struggle in space, so Bright Hope really helps with that. Having 6 health and having Sentinel is really good.
Going into general sideboard cards, you of course see Regional Governor, which is going to be at the top because it's, once again, we're seeing kind of anti-cards becoming a main deck option. So Regional Governor is just incredibly powerful. Being able to slow down the opponent is so good, and being able to name a card that's going to be really hard for you to deal with, such as a Fleet Lieutenant combo or for a cause I believe in. Then we're going to see Shoot First, which is attack with a unit, gets +1 for this attack. Colonel Yularen, which lets you heal 1 damage from your base every time you play a green unit, including itself. Asteroid Sanctuary, exhaust stuff and give a shield token to your friendly unit that costs 3 or less, so you can just take more board control. Traitorous, obviously an amazing card, 5 cost, you're able to take control of a unit that costs 3 or less, but if it's buffed, you still take control of it. Say it's buffed with buff with the 2 experience tokens with Wing Leader, you can be able to take control of that card, which is really strong. And then, of course, we have the 5-cost Bombing Run, which deals 3 damage to an arena of your choice, which is just able to kind of mitigate the swarming that a Sabine deck might do.
Yeah, Regional Governor is turning into a main deck card, so we might start taking it out of the series if we see more decks running it. But yeah, if you're not running Regional Governor, you probably should, at least in the sideboard. Just naming a card is so incredibly strong. And then Shoot First. This is good for your yellow decks. You just say you don't have enough damage or have a unit to deal enough damage, you can just shoot first and not have your unit stay on board, have no damage on it, so it helps a lot. Yularen was a card I haven't really seen much until obviously I'm playing Sabine and I see this card get sideboarded against me. I'm like, oh, it makes sense, right? Heal. Healing is super important because of how much damage Sabine does, so this card helps with that. Asteroid Sanctuary, resting something, just gives you more time to get to the mid and late game. So that's pretty much all Asteroid Sanctuary can help do. Traitorous is good. You take their unit and just, alright, now they don't have the unit. They have to pretty much destroy your unit. Most of the time they won't have cards to get rid of upgrades. So Traitorous is pretty much live and nothing will be taken out from it. And then Bombing Run, if there's just so many units, like they have 5 units, most likely all of them have 3 HP, so you play Bombing Run and you just defeated all 5 units. So these are just cards that we think would be really good in the side to play against Sabine if you're running or having problems with Sabine.
Alright, thank you guys for watching our second episode of this series. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to see next in the comments. We do have our next video planned out already. We're going to be addressing the 3rd strongest deck, or 2nd, depending on who you're talking to, deck in the format. So look forward to that. Let us know in the comments what other decks you wish to see on this series. Let us know how you want us to improve this series, and we'll appreciate all that feedback.
Yep, thank you guys for watching.